I started a new job last semester, and my two coworkers are girls in poli-sci, and so at the time that I was hired, I knew of them, but I wasn't yet friends with them. And one day I was hired in about October, and one day in November, I spent the entire day with one of my coworkers because we were just happened to be stuck in the office doing the same tasks all day. And gradually, it was revealed that we had dated the same guy. And not only had we dated the same guy, but we had both been treated poorly by this man. And as the day wore on and more facts were revealed about the case, I came to see that the chronologies of our respective relationships were pretty much identical. He had he had stopped texting her and disengaged instead of breaking up with her, just as he had done for me. And I have to tell you, that's the case for a lot of the guys I see at UVic or have dated at UVic, and that's probably why I'm single right now. So this was a great moment in the course of our friendship. After that day, we talked more and more. We texted. We saw each other outside of the workplace. I even went to visit her in Vancouver on New Year's and stayed with her. And right now, I count her as one of my best friends. So that day, when we discovered we had been treated shittily by the same guy, was kind of a watershed moment in our friendship. And it frustrates me and it pisses me off, even though it's kind of hilarious, that a guy was an ultimate bonding moment for me and a female friend. And so when I read Charlotte Bunch's piece, Lesbians in Revolt, I really identified with a lot of her lines. Even though it is very extreme, she's asking for something that the class did not take kindly to. I really identified with a lot of her arguments, and I sort of chose the points that spoke to me and elaborated upon them. I also saw this article differently to the way most of my classmates did and the way that Kevin did for sure. Because of her argument that we need to take lesbianism out of the bedroom, it's not a bedroom issue. We need to desexualize lesbians or lesbianism, as she's arguing, and feminism for that matter. I didn't take lesbianism to mean the sexual relationship between two women. I saw it as switching the referent object from the man to the woman, orienting ourselves around ourselves and our female friends and women that we don't even know for that matter as a way to create allegiances and forge connections. And when she writes, to be a lesbian is to love oneself, a woman, in a culture that denigrates and despises women, I said, yes, I can't put my finger on it. I can write articles, I can submit papers, and I can study this for 5 years, but there's no sweeter way to put it than that. We live in a culture that denigrates and despises women, and that's why I've chosen as my task, this is going to sound cliche, as my purpose in life is to write for women that have been neglected and have lacked a voice. So when she writes that heterosexuality separates women from each other, it makes women define themselves through men, and it forces women to compete against each other for men. Hell yeah, she's totally right. And it may be uncomfortable, and it may turn a lot of people off, but I think she's right. And acknowledging this is the key to fixing it. My coworker, who's now my friend, later told me that going into the interview, she was very nervous because she feared I had an unfair advantage by knowing this guy. She thought we were still dating at this point, and she thought it would affect my professionalism and my work ethic, which is kind of sad when you think about it. Yeah, it was really disheartening to hear because she didn't know me as a friend yet. She only saw my relationship in proximity to this guy. I really applaud Charlotte Bunch for bringing in class and race, which is pretty unique for 1972. She writes that it's a real difference in women's behavior and political needs, and even though she doesn't really elaborate on that, she's right. I did disagree with her in a couple of ways, though, primarily that she writes it's not the job of the oppressed to explain our oppression to the oppressor, but I have to disagree. It's not our job, but it's our purpose. And as my epiphany for this year, my 5th year of university, is that I write as the oppressed, and I give voice to issues faced by the oppressed, and I treat academia as a way to academia. I treat academia as a way to agitate for change and to fight against the status quo. And so Charlotte Bunch is really agitating for that. She speaks in extreme terms because she wants extreme change, and I really applaud her for it.